Uncle Warren.
Yes?
Why did the penguin cross the road?
Because he was slipping on thin ice.
No!
We got to get you a better comedy coach. That's coming up here on The Undercurrent. I'm sorry. I'm always a critic.
Always a critic.
Always a critic. How's everybody doing this morning? Why is this? Oh, here we go. Here we go. We got people here. I think we got Miguel here. What's up, Miguel? Over on the YouTubes. We're broadcasting on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and Instagram.
Yes, on Instagram. And if you are watching on Instagram, as I always remind you, your comments do not pop up here in our StreamYard studio. I'll be checking out your comments so I can, acknowledge you at various times, but it won't happen as quickly as it does with folks who are watching on YouTube or Rumble or Facebook.
Yeah, so just put your chill pants on. See, I can't do comedy either. I got to figure out we can't pop up the chat on the screen today, but we're monitoring the chats here to see what everybody's doing. So hopefully you're having a good day, everybody. It's Wednesday. This is show number 4.
It is. Can you believe it? After all the preparation, and then in the end, you can prepare all you want with these things, but you just gotta dive on into the undercurrent and do them.
I've literally done hundreds of live streams, and I still get nervous every single time.
Oh yeah,
every single, because
all this coffee doesn't help either.
Well, yeah, I know, right? Well, fuckery's afoot when it comes to technology. So I never assume that everything's going to work. I always double check and everything. So because we want to make sure that you can hear us. That's the main thing I'm always worried about. And if my audio is too loud out there, guys, if you could let me know, I appreciate it. We're still kind of working that out. I don't have the same like compression and EQ on this mic as I do for my shows, because I like to keep it natural.
You're a very natural man.
I'm a terrible natural person. What have we got today?
We got a lot. We got a lot.
Yeah. So coming up in the catch of the day, talking about communities and their responses to these ICE agent intrusions into their communities, where Laney's going to give you the full meal deal on how these communities are taking care of their own. And that's and that's kind of a lesson for all of us. It's like we need to get to know our neighbors. We need community. We need to band together, because otherwise we're divided. Here comes ICE, here comes federal troops, and what are you gonna do? Are you gonna still do that? You still gonna put up with that? I wouldn't put up with that. So
I'm also going to explain why, as much as I love local media, a lot of media can't really help in this situation. I'm going to explain why. There's some very good reasons why, and also why technology can't help. It's like Uncle Warren had said, we have to get to know our neighbors, and we're going to talk about why that is.
But first, we got to get to the Riptide. Oh no! Ripping those headlines off for you. So let's get to it. Guess what, Gen Z?
Uh-oh. Poor Gen Z. I wanted better for them. I wanted better for all these kids, and look what happened.
Well, that's the way it's supposed to be, right? You're supposed to make the next generation have a better life than you did, right? And it seems like it's just the reverse. It's like, no, it's just getting worse. And as the oldest people start dying off, there's all kinds of like wealth hoarding and stuff like that going on that didn't happen that much in the past. So, but let's get to it. Gen Z credit scores plunge as the cost of living rises. For members of Generation Z, it's becoming harder and harder to maintain good credit. That age group saw the steepest drop in credit health this year, according to the New York Times report on Saturday, citing data from FICO's Credit Insights report. According to the report, Gen Z's average FICO score dropped to 676 compared to the national average of 715. 715, that's the national average? I thought it would be way lower than that, the way this economy is and people getting ravaged, you know. And around 14% of Gen Z borrowers saw their score fall by 50 points or more, the largest share in 5 years. The report said there are a few reasons for this decline, such as the resumption of student loan repayments, the rising cost of living, and less access to credit building offerings. And with credit cards harder to come by, many Gen Zers now rely on debit cards or buy now, pay later, BNPL, which typically don't help build a credit history. With fewer traditional ways to build credit, like home ownership, Gen Z is finding it harder to establish and maintain a strong credit profile. Ali Danzinger, an executive at career platform Ascent Up, told the New York Times. At the same time, the report noted America's big banks are focusing more on premium credit cards geared toward wealthier customers. Yeah, that's the trend. Everything trending towards the wealthy. New York Times also pointed to a recent USAA survey showing that close to half of Gen Z consumers don't entirely understand how credit scores operate, while 20% have never checked their score. That isn't to say members of this generation aren't concerned about their financial well-being. As noted here last month, while Gen Z is trying to save, it is also dealing with the reality of not being able to withstand financial shocks. Research by Payments, that's this site here, by Payments Intelligence, has shown that Gen Zers have an average of $5,948 of readily available cash or dollars in the bank or at home. That's compared to $8,594 on average for millennials and $9,313 for members of Gen X. I'd like to see some of that cash. Even among those who have savings on hand, 40% are very or extremely concerned about the damage a $2,000 expense would do to their existing cushion, according to Payments. A Gen Zer with a junior marketing job in Brooklyn will feel that pinch harder than one in Tulsa. Nearly 70% of Gen Z adults and 64% of millennials say rising prices are their biggest day-to-day challenge, compared with 39% of baby boomers. Most recently, Payments wrote about the use of side gigs by these consumers to supplement their incomes. While these part-time positions account for 43% of the average side hustler's total income, that figure climbs to 57% for Gen Z consumers and 76% for those earning less than $50,000 per year, turning what was once a cushion into a core source of liquidity, Payments wrote. So Gen Z, yeah, and we've been seeing this happen for decades. I mean, basically since the 80s. That's when the decline started, right? Because the boomers, when they were becoming young adults, the college was practically free. Your wages were almost on par with profits that the companies were making. I mean, you know, these were the days of people working somewhere 30, 40 years, getting the gold watch, getting the pension. And unless you have a union now, that ain't never going to happen.
No, it isn't going to happen. And it was funny because I remember this was the thing with us Gen Xers back in the very early 90s. Was we were saying, okay, we are going to be, you know, the generation that did not do as well as our parents. Then the tech boom started to happen. The Cold War ended and the tech boom started to happen. And we thought, hey, for a brief shining moment, we thought that we might actually do okay. We were not going to get nuked. We were not going to be irradiated, and we were going to succeed. That did not happen. And I think a lot of that died around 9/11, or that illusion died around 9/11, because I'm not sure it was ever set up to get us into a good place. But in this case specifically, the issue of the credit scores, because the credit scoring system is all over the place. People are routinely being told, well, this is your credit score. You find out, first of all, you have multiple credit scores. And the credit score that a mortgage lender will use is very different than the credit score that, say, the cable company will check before deciding whether to charge you a deposit or not. And so there are all different ways of upping and lowering your credit score, manipulating your credit scores. And there's companies out there that will sell you all kinds of products to help you do that. But in the end, the people with the money, the people who are going to lend or who are going to secure a loan, what they're going to be looking at may be very different from what you're monitoring. And so that's a whole other wrinkle involved here that Gen Z and everybody has to deal with. But yeah, we're dealing with a bunch of young people who are coming out into a very difficult job market. Remember, for years now, it's been learn to code, learn to code, learn to code. Telling kids, don't major in the liberal arts. They're useless. You have to go into tech or healthcare, or science. And now they're coming back and saying, well, AI has taken all your jobs. Too bad. You should go into the trades. So this is what these young people are walking into, a very confusing job market. There's no saying that a job that they train for now will exist in a few years. And they're being expected to manage their finances, find a place to live, feed themselves, transport themselves back and forth to work, and, of course, as they point out, financial shocks. Recently, I had a death in my family. Wasn't planning for it, but everything was going on out of state. That had to be absorbed by myself and other family members. That's life. And these young folks haven't had to deal with that. It's going to be an even bigger shock for them.
Yeah, it is. It is, unfortunately. And that was the thing, if Gen X had been more successful than the boomers, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. But then you like you said, 9/11, and then like all the deregulation, all of the cutting of safety nets you had, and then of course, you had what was it I was going to say? It was a decline in the 80s, right? It was just like all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, you got to pick yourself up by your bootstraps. And like, well, what do you guys do? You're talking to the boomers. So how can we talk to the millennials or Gen Z or hell, even Gen Alpha? Gen Beta just started this year. So their firstborns are this year. So it's like, do we keep on the steady decline? Or do we actually do something about it? And a lot of that goes to the people that we elect, the people that control the economy. I mean, the Wall Street is just nothing but a casino, and it's being touted as the end all be all when it's like, no, it's not. There are actual people out here who have an economy that we're dealing with high prices, and they can't deal with it because they're not making the money that they're supposed to be making. So, and Gen Z, and it just keeps getting. Gen Alpha, it's going to happen to them. Hopefully not. But, I mean, as trends go, I don't know. So, speaking of AI, I thought that was a prominent thing you said about, learn to code. And then once you learn to code, oh, no, guess what? AI took your job. It's like the old bait and switch, right? It's like, no, like Lucy says, I'm going to hold the football. And then Charlie Brown's like, okay. And then you go to kick the football. Nope. Take it away. So some employers skip the upskilling and use AI to replace workers. Yep. This is where we are at now, folks. So business leaders may be using artificial intelligence tools and automation to replace workers rather than invest in skills training, according to an October 8th report from the British Standards Institute. Oh, the British Standards. Jolly good. Just over 2/5 of leaders surveyed said AI is enabling headcount reduction, and 31% said their organizations consider AI solutions before considering hiring for roles. Yeah, you know why? Because you don't have to pay AI. That's one of those things. In reflection of this, BSI's analysis of the discourse around AI implementation found that discussion of job automation significantly overshadows discussions of workforce development. This suggests companies are prioritizing AI's role in innovation and competitive advantage, potentially overlooking the human capital implications. Human capital. I love how it's just
human capital.
Yeah, just so dehumanized with that. In addition to a poll of more than 850 business leaders, the study also used an AI-supported analysis of a data set that included the annual reports of various multinational corporations. Entry-level jobs are particularly at risk, the study indicated, with a quarter of respondents saying AI could perform most of the work of an entry-level colleague. Which begs the question, like, if you don't train somebody off the bat, how are they going to advance in the company? They're not going to have that knowledge and skill. An AI is not going to be he's not going to be able to do some of the stuff, at least not right now, that an upper level manager can do.
Well, there's something else here too to keep in mind with the training and the upskilling. The idea was, okay, you upskill, you have your loyal worker, you upskill them so that they can expand their skills, and move up in the company. But there's also a problem with that for employers, because when you train somebody, that worker may say, great, I've got new skills and there are other job opportunities open to me. I can make more, have better working conditions, and they toddle on off. And AI is not going to do that.
No.
So for some of these owners, hey, I'd rather train a bot that's going to stay right here, rather than a human being who, the ungrateful swine, may walk off if they get a better offer. And keep in mind also that a lot of small to medium-sized companies, and sometimes larger companies, but mostly it's small to medium-sized companies, they like to keep a good worker, right where they are, because that good worker, the one who does their job extremely well, they don't want them out of that position. Now, they're not going to pay them anymore to stay in that position,
right.
But they're not going to advance them either, because that person is doing what the company owner wants, and that is most profitable in that position. And they don't want to bother with training anybody else. That's why, and particularly recently, people have been changing jobs far more quickly, because they realize that they're not going to get anywhere with the companies that they're in.
So AI represents an enormous opportunity for businesses globally, but as they chase greater productivity and efficiency, we must not lose sight of the fact that it is ultimately people who power the progress, because your AI is only as good as your local data center. Our research makes clear that the tension between making the most of AI and enabling a flourishing workforce is the defining challenge of our time. That was Susan Taylor Martin, CEO of BSI. Notably, small and medium-sized employers may become key players in upskilling, they said in the report. Fewer said AI is crucial to their growth compared to large companies, and only 30% of small and medium-sized employers have cut junior roles compared to half of larger firms. The implication is that small and medium-sized employers could become the backbone of skills development, providing greater opportunities for employment and training for Gen Z, the report said. So other reports have also pointed to the danger entry-level jobs and their holders may be in. For example, nearly 3 in 4 Gen Z respondents to a ZE report released in July said AI will reduce entry-level corporate jobs opportunities in the next 5 years, forcing workers to reevaluate what a safe career might look like. Conversely, entry-level job seekers may not be ready for their jobs due to a lack of soft skills, signaling further need for upskilling, according to the September report from General Assembly. So yeah, it's that's the thing. It's like you don't have if you're that's where you get your skills, right? I always make football analogies. It's like when you get a rookie coming into the National Football League. Yes, they may have some skills from college, but they need to learn what it's like to be in the pros. They ain't never going to learn if they're sitting on the sidelines the whole time. They got to get in the game and play, right? So, and that's the thing. If they're not in there getting those soft skills, getting that knowledge about the job, and if AI is doing all that, then that's gonna lead to really, really bad middle and upper management because of that lack of training like that.
I remember I was a philosophy major when I went to university. And this was, and I started in 88. Yeah, I started in 88, and I graduated, I want to say in 92. Um, and we had a brochure. The philosophy department actually had a brochure. What good is a philosophy degree? Because we had so many parents who didn't want their kids getting this liberal arts degree that they saw as being useless. And there had been at that time studies that showed that people who had liberal arts degrees, including philosophy, what would happen is they would get hired into jobs at a lower pay rate than those who maybe had, say, a business degree or a more specific degree. But they showed that over a few years, the liberal arts graduates were actually making more money. And that was attributed to the fact that the liberal arts graduates were more trainable, that they had the thinking skills, the rhetorical skills, they had the writing skills, the communication skills. They were in classes where you were debating each other, so you had to learn the so-called soft skills of communicating effectively, listening to other viewpoints, pushing your point forward.
Mm-hmm.
All of these skills were proving to be critical in the workplace, even if these were not, even if you had a marketing job, for example. These skills were absolutely critical, and it did show that people with these liberal arts degrees were doing just fine getting out of there, getting out of university, getting into that entry level job, and they were able to get themselves into company culture, get themselves trained up, and moving forward. And as Chuck says, being from his vantage point out in space in his flying saucer, yeah, apprenticeships are the way to go. I'm sure that they apprentice all of his comrades up there when they're monitoring their little spaceships. And here on planet Earth, apprenticeships are another option. And we think of apprenticeships as being solely the purview of the trades, the build HVAC and construction, and that is true. But you can also do apprenticeships in other areas.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that's available, and it needs to be a more robust system in the U.S. I'm all for getting a college education. I think last week we talked about, hey, get that associate's degree. If you can, because the associate's degree is a good foundation for anything. If you need to go back to school because you want to change careers, you've got your first 2 years taken care of. You can go and you don't have to take any of the general education requirements, and you can speed up your process. But yeah, apprenticeships need to be happening. But at this point, we've now got AI scanning resumes, and they're looking for very specific qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, they're for jobs that don't even exist. A lot of people find their jobs through people who they know. So again, we're putting young people or anybody who's re-entering the job market into a very bad spot at this point. And taking away upskilling within jobs is itself a major problem. And I think it's going to be bad for everybody.
Well, I remember when I was in high school, or that you had co-op, right? What you would do is, you'd go to school half a day.
Mm-hmm.
You get out maybe like an hour early or something like that. That was your class. You went to your job, and that's what. And a lot of times that's where your soft skill training came in. A lot of your basic job skill training came in, and that was high school. And then by the time you got to college, you could get an apprenticeship somewhere, like Chuck was talking about, and have an apprenticeship while you're going to college. Nowadays, you can't do that. You have to work a job basically to pay for the school, and sometimes that job is not what the job that you're actually trying to get a degree for, right? Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's, you're working at fast food or something just to pay for school, and it kind of defeats the purpose.
Well, and we had that also. We had the programs where, co-op. We called it co-op. They would go to school half day, work a job half day, and it all counted. We also had people who would go to trade school half day. They would go to high school half day, then they would go to cosmetology school.
Yeah.
And they would graduate. I mean, they would graduate they'd start at 16. They would graduate with a high school degree, a high school diploma, and their cosmetology license, ready to start making money. Now there are some schools today that do have a program where you can go to a community college halftime. If you're intellectually gifted, you can go to community college halftime and high school halftime, and you can leave high school with a high school diploma and an associate's degree. But again, that's usually for students only in certain districts, and usually those who are already performing well above grade level. So, yeah.
Well,
And they do need to be, and yes, and Chuck, you're absolutely right. They do need to be paid. And if you go to the Department of Labor's website, they have a whole thing about registered apprenticeships where they explain that the people who are in these programs, they earn a credential and they start earning money from day one. That could be very appealing to a lot of high school students, particularly those who maybe are in homes that don't have a lot of money or have unstable living situations. That could be a great option for them.
And and sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be paid too. You may just have something where you're working a job in your field, maybe a couple of days a week, getting those skills. If you're getting paid, that's great. But if you're not, at least you're still getting that valuable information, and you're not really taking that much out of your school life. And that's the most important thing. While you're getting your education is the most important thing at that point, and getting that side that side experience like that in your field is almost as valuable as money. And in this day and age, yes, they should all be paid because everything's so expensive. But if the economy had actually leveled out and was a little bit more amenable to everybody, then you could probably get away with some unpaid.
Well, there's unpaid internships, but the federal government makes it clear that an unpaid internship has to, because you can't be violating minimum wage laws.
Right. You have to be a nonprofit to have unpaid.
Well, you have to be a nonprofit to have unpaid labor, but you can also have a for-profit company can have an internship program that's unpaid, but it has to be structured, and the benefit to the intern has to be greater than the benefit to the company. You can't just have somebody doing Starbucks runs or holding up cameras or something like that. They have to be learning something. And that has to be established. Otherwise, that unpaid intern could, file a labor law complaint about that. And that has been known to happen. So just so people are aware.
Well, speaking of getting paid, or somebody that's trying to get paid, Trump's trying to scam the government again.
Some men pay good money to be probed.
Yeah,
and he wants money.
Well, ask Chuck about that. I'm pretty sure he makes has a pretty lucrative business with that. So, hey, watch yourself, buddy. Eyes on you. Straight grift. Trump reportedly wants $230 million from taxpayers for DOJ probing him. Giggity, giggity, goo, giggity, goo, giggity, giggity. So Trumpy is facing fresh allegations of attempting to corruptly profit from his office after the New York Times reported Tuesday that the Republican is demanding that the U.S. Department of Justice pay him $230 million smackaroonies in taxpayer dollars for previous federal investigations into him and his allies at the DOJ are expected to make the final decision. Trump filed the administrative claims, which are submitted to the Department for potential settlements to prevent lawsuits in federal court. Before he returned to the White House earlier this year, people familiar with the matter told the newspaper. However, the president nodded to the legal battle in public comments at the White House last week. They raided my house in Florida. See, this is a crossover episode with my show because I have to do the Trump impression. They raided my house in Florida. It was an illegal raid. The president said beside FBI Director Kash Patel, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, and her deputy Todd Blanche, Trump's former lead criminal defense lawyer and one of two people who can greenlight such settlements. I have a lawsuit that was doing very well, and when I became president, I said, I'm sort of suing myself. I don't know. How do you settle the lawsuit? I said, I'll give me X dollars, right? And I don't know what to do with the lawsuit. It's a great lawsuit, and it's the best lawsuit ever. It's the bestest ever. You'll never find another better lawsuit.
It's a big, beautiful lawsuit.
It's a big, beautiful, great lawsuit. Want more? And now I won, and it sort of looks bad. I'm suing myself, right? What a fucking clown. As the Times detailed yesterday, the first claim lodged in late 2023 seeks damages for a number of purported violations of his rights, including the FBI and special counsel investigation into Russian election tampering and possible connections to the 2016 Trump campaign, according to people familiar with the matter. They spoke on the condition of anonymity because the claim has not been made public. The second complaint, filed in the summer of last year, accuses the FBI of violating Trump's privacy by searching Mar-a-Lago, his club and residence in Florida, in 2022 for classified documents. It also accuses the Justice Department of malicious prosecution in charging him with mishandling sensitive records after he left office. In addition to the Deputy Attorney General, the head of the DOJ Civil Division can sign off on such settlements. That post is currently held by Stanley Woodard Jr. As the newspaper noted, Woodard previously represented not only Walton Nauta, the president's co-defendant in the classified documents case, but also a number of other Trump aides, including Kash Patel, in investigations related to Trump or the Capitol riot on January 6, 2021. A White House representative referred questions to the DOJ, where spokesperson Chad Gilmartin said, in any circumstance, all officials at the Department of Justice follow the guidance of career ethics officials. Meanwhile, Pace University professor Bennett Gershman told The Times, what a travesty. The ethical conflict is just so basic and fundamental, you don't need a law professor to explain it. And then to have people in the Justice Department decide whether his claim should be successful or not, and these are the people who serve him deciding whether he wins or loses, he added. It's bizarre and almost too outlandish to believe. Well, that's the Trump presidency in a nutshell right there. Bizarre and too outlandish to believe.
To believe, yes.
Yeah. So congressional Democrats, lawyers, journalists, and other critics also weighed in on Trump's reported conduct on social media, condemning it corrupt and impeachable. Oh God, don't impeach him again. You just make yourself look so stupid when you do that. It's the boy who cried wolf. You keep impeaching somebody, and then when he actually does something that is like super really impeachable, they won't do it. Straight grift, straight up extorting the Justice Department, eluding taxpayers. It's hard to think of an action more purely corrupt than a president ordering the executive branch to pay him hundreds of millions of dollars, said David French, the Times columnist and visiting professor of public policy at Lipscomb University. I cannot wait to read the MAGA defenses of this, and there will be many. They'll display Soviet levels of sycophancy. So People's Policy Project president, oh man, that was an alliteration right there. Matt Brunig said that suing the government is your personal capacity, suing the government in your personal capacity and then having the government which you run settle the lawsuit with you for money is the true infinite money trick. And maybe Trump knew that. Matthew Miller, the U.S. State Department spokesperson during the Biden administration, suggested that this would be the most corrupt act in presidential history. No complicated schemes, no outside actors, just a straight up looting of the taxpayers to put $230 million in Trump's pocket. Lisa Gilbert, co-president of the watchdog group Public Citizen, said, it's difficult for a president who spent the last 10 months behaving like a wannabe dictator and demonstrating his contempt for the law to surprise us. But Donald Trump has managed to do it today. Instead of being content with getting away with his lawless behavior, Trump is now brazenly demanding compensation from taxpayers for having the audacity to treat him like a public servant who can be held accountable for wrongdoing. There is no other way to put it. The authoritarian demagogue we call our president is drunk on power, and there is no amount of money that can satiate. Thank you. I don't have enough coffee. That's what it is. Satiate this grifter's appetite for hoarding wealth instead of using his presidency to serve the good of the country. This disgusting behavior must be called out and stopped. Indeed, it does. But, parades on Saturday ain't going to cut it. I'm just telling you. The reporting came on
parades are for children and clowns.
Yeah, and unless they're throwing candy, then they're really bad parades too. Don't go to a parade that doesn't have candy. That's just a little tip from me. The reporting came on day 21 of a federal government shutdown over congressional Republicans' refusal to reverse health care cuts expected to negatively impact tens of millions on Americans. Coming up later, we're going to be talking about that shutdown and how it's affecting people on Snap too. So stay tuned for that. Trump is now openly shaking down his own Justice Department for hundreds of millions of dollars to line his pockets, while claiming there's not enough money for Americans' health care, declared U.S. Senator Mark Warner. He has no shame. He is openly and boldly corrupt. Senator Andy Kim said, what does Trump need more of our money for? I guess it's good to be president when you can bully, intimidate, and shake down every institution in this country, including now the Department of Justice. This is what a mob boss looks like. So Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee were similarly critical, calling it the ultimate shutdown, shakedown. Ooh, I like that. Shut down, shake down. Kind of sounds like a 70s disco tune. Donald Trump, who's put more than $3 billion in his pocket since returning to the White House, now wants to have his lawyers at the DOJ to pay him $230 million in the middle of the GOP government shutdown, the panel members said. Yeah, that's a good question. Can they actually pay that out? If the government shut down, they can't pay out these other things. How could they pay that out, right? Let's see. Trying to be okay. While tens of millions of Americans desperately try to pay for groceries, health care, and child care, Trump is robbing America blind. This is exactly why the Constitution forbids presidents from taking any money from the government outside of his official salary. This is Donald Trump first, America last, the gangster state at work, billionaires shaking down the people. Representative Jamie Raskin, Democrat out of Maryland, the panel's ranking member and manager of Trump's historic second impeachment, is launching an investigation into the potential settlement, citing the Constitution's domestic emulance clause. Like the committee's Democrats, critics pointed to the various ways Trump and his family have cashed in on the presidency, from his Qatari jet to their cryptocurrency moves. Yeah, that jet, right? Former Labor Secretary Robert Reich concluded Tuesday that America's grifter-in-chief knows no bounds. That's true. So $230 million. Do you think he'll get it?
I think it will get a lot of attention.
Right.
The claim. I mean, yeah, keep in mind, this is WWE time. I've been saying this for years.
The kayfabe.
Yeah. And basically, if they talk about whether it's a shoot or a work, and a work is part of the storyline. A shoot was something that happens that's not part of the storyline. However, the rule among old timers, the OGs in professional wrestling, is if it looks like it's a shoot, it's really a work. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I think that people just need to keep in mind, Donald Trump is in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. Linda McMahon has held cabinet level positions in both of his administrations. I'm leaving you right there.
Yeah. Isn't she currently the Secretary of Education?
Yeah.
I'm not going to comment.
Yeah.
I don't want to comment on somebody's intelligence being the Secretary of Education, but I think
she's a good businesswoman. I mean, she's always been the business brains, behind what happened with the WWE. And sometimes you tend to wonder why the WWE, which was a regional promotion, not even recognized, its title was not even recognized by Pro Wrestling Illustrated until pretty far in the game as a legit world title. How they moved into this prominent position, and there's some discussion that could be had about that.
Right on. Did you hear about this? The Louvre in France getting robbed? Did you hear about that?
I do, and I have opinions, but let's read it, and I can share with you what little I know.
So yeah, French police may nab Louvre thieves, but unlikely to recover the loot. Right? This is one of those deals. It's like, it's stuff. They said it's priceless, right? So it's like, how would they hawk it? You're not going to go to Pawn Stars, and say, look, I got all this Napoleonic jewelry. How much you want to give me? Like, I'll give you like $40.
I'll comment on that, but you go ahead and read this, and I'm going to give you my opinion, Uncle Warren, because I have opinions.
Crime gangs around Europe are increasingly robbing valuable jewels and gold from cash-needy museums like the Louvre. But while police often catch the thieves, they struggle to recover the priceless goods, law enforcement and art experts say. Only a small pool of criminals would be capable of such a job as Sunday's audacious, I can't talk, robbery in Paris and may already be known to police, the specialists say, but the objects themselves could be quickly broken down into component parts and sold on. Oh man, they're going to take it to a chop shop? Oh no.
Yeah, that
It,
could
it,
happen, but we'll talk about it.
the jewelry chop shop. If I steal a Van Gogh, it's a Van Gogh. I can't dispose of it through any other channel than an illicit art market, said Mark Balcells, a Barcelona-based expert in crimes against cultural heritage. But when I am stealing jewelry, I can move it through an illicit market as precious stones. The brazen heist of crown jewels from the Louvre, the world's most visited museum, has been decried by some as a national humiliation and sparked security checks across France's multitude of cultural sites. If you target the Louvre, the most important museum in the world, and then get away with the French crown jewels, something was wrong with security, said art investigator Arthur Brand. Officials at the Louvre, home to artworks such as the Mona Lisa, had in fact already sounded the alarm about lack of investment. Too bad they didn't sound the alarm when the jewels were getting heisted. You know what I'm like? They're probably going to use those alarms about then. And at least 4 French museums have been robbed in the last 2 months, according to media reports. Yesterday, prosecutors said they had charged a Chinese-born woman for the theft of 6 gold nuggets worth about 1.5 million euros. That's about $1.75 million from Paris's Museum of Natural History last month. She was arrested in Barcelona trying to dispose of some melted gold, they said. Christopher Marinello, founder of Art Recovery International, which tracks stolen art, said museum heists were on the rise across Europe and further afield. He cited cases in the Netherlands, France, and Egypt. If you have jewels or gold in your collections, you need to be worried, Marinello said. So, who done it? Paris prosecutors have entrusted the investigation to a specialized Paris police unit known as the BRB. I guess they went somewhere and were thinking about coming back. So you get it, because which is used to dealing with high-profile robberies. Crickets. Former police officer Pascal, that guy who served in the unit, said the BRB handled the 2016 Kim Kardashian probe, oh my, when Paris thieves stole her $4 million engagement ring, as well as a recent spate of kidnapping of wealthy crypto bosses. He said the BRB has about 100 agents with over a dozen specialized in museum thefts. Investigators will look at video footage, telephone records, and forensic evidence, while informants will also be activated. They can have teams working on it 24/7 and for a long period, that guy said, expressing 100% confidence the thieves would be caught. Police will be poring over security footage going back weeks, looking to identify suspicious people casing out the joint, Brand said. Corinne Chartrel, who previously worked at the French police's Central Office for the Fight Against Trafficking in Cultural Property, said the jewels could feasibly end up in a global diamond center like Antwerp, where there are probably people who aren't too concerned about the origin of the item. The diamonds could also be cut into smaller stones and the gold melted down, leaving buyers unaware of their provenance. If the thieves feel the net closing, they could chuck or destroy the loot altogether. Police are clearly in a race against time. Once they've been cut into smaller pieces, once they're cut into smaller pieces, the deed is done. It's over. We'll never see those pieces again intact, said Marinello. It's a very small percentage recovering stolen artworks. When it comes to jewelry, that percentage is even less. Any theory about the objects being ordered up by a mysterious buyer was laughable, said Brand. That's unheard of. He said you only see it in Hollywood movies. Unless you have like somebody just who's like a trillionaire or something and just wants it in their vast collection or something. Cultural authorities across Europe will be looking at how to better secure museums at a time of tight public finances. Wow, people stealing stuff with the economy in the toilet. Wow, that's you never hear about that. Brand said it was impossible to properly safeguard a museum, so the best thing was to slow down the time it takes to steal objects and escape, giving people longer to respond by making windows or display cases thicker or adding more doors. They know they have only 5-6 minutes to get away with it because after 6 minutes, the police show up. So if they go into a museum and they find out that it takes more than 6, 7, 8 minutes, they will not do it, he said. Finland's National Gallery Director General Kimmo Leva said financial realities meant tough decisions. A tightening everyday economy is naturally not the best basis for making the investments needed to mitigate potential threats. So, yeah, so you have, and from what I heard too, that the Napoleonic jewels were in an area where there was construction going on. So apparently the thieves dressed up like construction workers, because they were going. I saw some of the security video, and you see these guys.
Mhm.
They're all dressed up like construction workers, and then you see them
Yeah.
breaking stuff, and they went in like a minute or 2 minutes or something like that, maybe even less.
Well, I can tell you this, particularly, I mean, people have pointed out museums can actually be very easy to steal from. In the U.S., I think we're used to seeing things. We have a lower trust society here, so I think we're used to seeing far more control over exhibits. I can tell you, like the British Museum, some years back, if you'll recall, there was Dr. John Dee. He was the original 007. He was a court astrologer and spy for Queen Elizabeth I. And he was doing these remarkable magical workings using wax tablets to invoke angels and that sort of thing. And one of his tablets was actually stolen right out of the British Museum. It wasn't under glass because, again, there's a higher trust society. People would come and look at it. Somebody walked in, swiped it, and is probably invoking angels at this very moment. But so this sort of thing does happen in museums. Happens over in Europe. As you pointed out, there was construction going on that offered an opportunity for these gorgeous court jewels, which were very much a part of France's of its history. In terms of what's happened to them or how they're going to be used, again, the issue is people have pointed out that with the price of silver and gold right now, you pull out the stones. Some of those precious stones, particularly the emeralds, they can be worth a lot. But it's that gold and that silver that could be worth a lot, and you can just take it out and sell it off, take it out for parts. The other possibility, and this is just another thing, is that if you have an extremely wealthy person who has a huge compound on which they live, and they have the friends who are of the same sensibilities, they might take this and display it proudly. There could be a home somewhere, an estate somewhere where there are, paintings that have been stolen, where objets d'art are around. Everybody knows it's all stolen, and nobody cares because they're at that level. So there is that possibility as well. I think the more obvious thing is that they can take if it is a criminal gang, maybe a cartel or something like that, they need the cash. They can just go in and unfortunately take apart these gorgeous pieces, and they're absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I love looking at that old jewelry. I don't know, maybe you're not into it, Uncle Warren, but I do. I mean, I really get a kick out of seeing
On
that stuff.
occasion,
The craftsmanship is just incredible.
when I'm feeling fancy, sometimes I want
It's
to
fun to
feel
look at.
pretty.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like how many of these jewel thieves know like super wealthy people to do that? So the more obvious thing is, as a whole, you can't sell it. So it's yes, it's priceless, but it's also worthless, right?
Well, it's worthless to the wrong jewel. I mean, it's worthless to it's worthless to the person who does not have the contacts. But you're
Right, that's
going
what
to
I'm
have
talking
some
about.
super wealthy people, and I'm not even talking about movie stars here. I'm talking about people whose wealth is far beyond
Right.
a
Oh yeah,
sports star or a
yeah.
movie star or a rock and roll star. I'm talking people super elite who believe that they are above the law, that they may in fact be creating the laws themselves from their little perches, and they may want this stuff. But I think in many cases, it's probably somebody who is going to melt this down, sell off the gems or whatnot, and just take the money and put it to some nefarious purpose. That's
Yeah.
my guess. That's the thing with jewelry. Jewelry itself, to the average person, is not worth as much as people think it is. That's why people have estate sales and that sort of thing. This stuff is really not worth that much.
Right. So yeah, and for the expediency, it's more logical to break up the pieces and put them into smaller, more sellable type sizes and cuts. Like they can take a jewel, like if it's a large jewel, they can cut it down into many jewels.
Yep.
And like you said, if they don't know anybody that can take the whole thing, and even then, even if they do, there's going to be a transfer of funds. I mean, we're talking about, you would have to have people who stole this, that they themselves had like Swiss bank accounts and offshore accounts and stuff like that, that they could transfer the money without any government seeing it. You know, it's not like like they said, it's not Hollywood where you have the briefcase full of cash and you open it up and okay, it's a deal. You know, it's like, it's all digital and transferred now. So, yeah, that's some wild stuff there. And the Louvre has always been targeted too. Like you said, there's that trust factor, and it's like, maybe you shouldn't trust so much. So,
yeah.
Well, guess what? It's time for the catch of the day.
It is.
It is time for you, Lainey P. And you're talking about communities and their response to these ICE agents that are coming in and disrupting everything. You want to take it away?
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about this. One of the things that's really been disturbing to me is, and this is apart from a separate discussion about immigration and whether somebody, should immigration be open? Should it be more closed? What should happen to people who overstay visas or who do not enter the U.S. or any other country with proper permissions? Put that over to the side. I want to talk about the behavior of this weaponized police force, as best way I can put it, and how they're interacting within these communities. We have communities where you have governors and mayors and civic leaders who are saying, please do not send ICE in here. We're going, please don't do this. They're saying we're sending them in anyways, and we're going to maybe reinforce them with the National Guard. But we've got a situation where these ICE agents, they're covering their faces. They're not wearing badges, which is not normal law enforcement procedure. You have a right to know who's apprehending you and for what reason. They're not showing warrants. In some cases, they're plain clothes. In other cases, they're wearing militarized gear, which is designed, of course, to intimidate not only their targets, but the community members. Yeah. And it's become a much more difficult situation, particularly when you have some of them are wearing plain clothes and you have no idea why you're being tackled. And I say this as a woman who grew up on all of these seminars, woman be safe, ladies be safe seminars. And we were told repeatedly, do not believe somebody who claims to be law enforcement. Ask to see identification. If a car comes behind you and they've got, and they've got the lights going, but it's a regular car, stay in your car and call 911. Or if you're at home, get on the phone, call 911, or back in the day, it was the operator, have them patch them through to the police department to verify that this person is a law enforcement officer. Why? Because people can and will impersonate law enforcement for the purpose of injuring and harming people. And in this particular case, this is an accident waiting to happen. You're going to have a couple of these yahoos. You're either going to have some yahoos dressed up like this and kidnapping people for, again, nefarious purposes, for nefarious purposes, or you're going to have a situation where an ICE officer is going to end up being killed or shot by somebody who doesn't understand why they're being tackled and has the means to respond accordingly. So this is just it's a horrendous situation. And it is designed to terrify the population. Again, working on people's emotions. Pro wrestling. If you are not a pro wrestling fan, I'm a longtime pro wrestling fan. I can tell you this is textbook pro wrestling, psychological, ring psychology. We used to call it ring psychology. All right. They're trying to terrify folks. So what has to happen is there has to be a community response. And when I'm talking community, I'm not talking the media, although the media can help. I'm not talking any kind of electronic or digital or technological response. And I'm going to explain why in a second. This is going to be neighbor to neighbor. You talked about getting to know your neighbors. I'm not talking metaphorical neighbor here. I'm talking who lives across the street from you, who is on your block. All right. And I'm going to explain why. Right now, it is becoming very difficult for the media, for example, to in real time to address this issue. We had a situation earlier this year where the FCC was investigating radio stations that were supposedly warning people about ICE raids. And it got a lot of press. It does not appear that was actually what was going on, but there was a rumor about this, and people got up in arms about it. And unfortunately, that means broadcast media, which is federally regulated because the bandwidth, broadcast bandwidth, is a limited resource and a public good that is governed by the regulatory state. The FCC was coming down on this. So, of course, radio stations and TV stations who could report in real time can't do this anymore. We've talked about in the past, Uncle Warren, print newspapers don't really exist or are not available anymore, or in many areas, and certainly not Spanish language or different language newspapers. And again, they're not going to be able to provide real-time information about sightings. All right. So that's not going to work real well for protecting your neighbors and saying, hey, don't go over there because we've seen Department of Humans, Homeland Security cars over there. Don't go over there. We can't say that to them on the radio or on television.
Right.
And newspapers no good. Now, we would say, okay, well, when we can have maybe an app to warn people. Well, Apple is removing any app that is being used to identify ICE. They've said because that could represent danger to law enforcement. So the App Store is removing that. So the app is not going to help much. You can still film things, maybe put it up on social media, but using an app designed for quick, rapid information is not going to happen. This is going to have to be neighbor to neighbor. Now, in Chicago, and this is really quite cool. By the way, I know this happens in other areas as well, but Chicago, the tamale ladies, the tamale guys are an institution in Chicago. You can find them on street corners selling their tamales. They're very good. But we also have the tamale guys who come into various bars. Drinking establishments in Chicago, if they don't have a kitchen, the tamale guys come in and they sell tamales to the patrons with full cooperation and support of the bar owner. Everybody benefits. The drunks, get something to sop up the booze.
Yeah.
You have any leftover, they sell them in a big sack with the napkins and they give you little containers of salsa. You get your choice. And if you have any leftover, you have them for breakfast. They're wonderful. But what's happening is cyclists in Chicago are organizing to cycle by the tamale carts, buy up all the tamales so these folks can go home. Yeah. They're getting their money. People get nummy tamales. But these folks can stay home. Really, right now, what is happening is people are staying home. But that means people can't get to work. They can't get medical care. They cannot necessarily check in on family and friends. Kids may not be going to school. So this is where we need to be talking to neighbors, and we need to be saying, okay, what can we do? Can we go shopping for you?
Yeah.
Can we, are there people who are educators who are able to be at home and able to provide tutoring and instructions? Are the local schools willing to allow these students to attend remotely? Because we have the technology for that we got during the COVID lockdowns. That's a possibility as well. If you have neighbors that you're concerned about, you have a backyard, you have a living room. Can they maybe kind of cross on over and join you for a barbecue and get out about and just socialize with you privately? A lot of people have lost the art of hosting, but some of us still have it.
I'm not good at it, but
well,
I'm still learning.
But we've got Chuck over here. We've got Nightstar. We got myself. We know how to host. And again, this is when you have your neighbors over, have them over for a meal and talk to them and say, what can we do to help you at this time? Because we keep in mind that a lot of immigrants in this country work jobs where they have to be physically present.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so again, this is absolutely critical. Also, I've put into the show notes on our Substack, or I will be putting them in there. Code Pink has a. If you look up, if you Google Code Pink, ICE, you will get a whole website full of information, practical things that you can do to ensure that to keep people safe. That people can do to keep themselves safe, and that you can do to help keep your neighbors safe at this time. What we're seeing is a massive, massive government overreach into a very complex problem. Keep in mind that when you'll notice that when we have these talks about so-called illegal aliens, and that is what the Department of Homeland Security is now calling them, there's never a discussion of who profits from this unregulated labor market. We're not seeing them going after the businesses that take advantage of these folks. We're not seeing them going after the traffickers who bring these folks in and have them working, 12, 14, 16-hour days, cleaning houses, working day labor, or delivering DoorDash, or whatever the case may be, taking money from them to rent them bikes or to rent them a room or a bed in an overcrowded apartment. There's a whole economy that people are profiting from these folks. We don't see them going after the people who are profiting from their labor. We're seeing the attacks on the individuals because they're a very vulnerable population. And the fact that U.S. citizens are willing to tolerate masked law enforcement, gun-toting law enforcement, who will not even give their names, who are not showing warrants, who are throwing smoke grenades at Presbyterian ministers.
Mm-hmm.
And we're willing to tolerate all of this because we have been conditioned to hate a segment of people largely on the basis of skin color. And also regarding, because we've fallen into the trap of resenting those who we think are getting something that we ourselves don't have, that we should be getting, and we're not getting. And we're being told that this group of people are getting all of these benefits, say free health care. That's the latest bugaboo with this whole government shutdown. And we're resenting them instead of the people who put us all in this position. So I would absolutely urge you at this time to forget looking at technology, forget looking at the media, contact mutual aid groups in your area, and get to know your neighbors, what you're going to tolerate, what you're not going to tolerate. You have to decide. You have to decide that now.
You're absolutely right. And this all boils down to fear, right? Fear is the root of hate, right? So when you make your population scared, they're more easily to control. Especially if you're the one causing the fear, but making it look like somebody else is causing the fear, and then all of a sudden you're the savior that comes in and says, say, oh, well, we'll save you from these evil people that really aren't evil at all. It's the fact that you're the evil one that's controlling them with the fear. And you mentioned the apps too. The social media platforms are getting in on that too. I did a report on Morning Extra about how Meta erased an 80,000 member community chat that was reporting ICE members in their area, and Facebook said, "Boop, none for you." And so that's the one thing that Trump does. He gins up fear among people, and fear and the hatred that stokes even more fear. It's like a vicious cycle between the two. And meanwhile, while all of this is going on, while we're all distracted, hating each other and fearing, wondering oh no, these illegals, they're going to come into my house and kill me and do God knows what else. They're getting away with actual crimes in the government. I mean, when you were a kid, you saw like apocalyptic kind of sci-fi movies where you saw troops on the streets of American cities, right? And you thought, man, that's so dystopian. that could never happen here. And 40 years later, here we are. So yeah, that's and you're right. We have to get to know our neighbors.
Yeah.
And
And
they
I mean
don't
your
want us to.
actual neighbors.
Yeah, your actual physical neighbors. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and they don't, and people don't want to see that. They only want to see you getting along with your neighbors if you're all of one mindset and you're doing what the powers that be want you to do. And you know, I'm not down for that. I kind of do my own thing, as a lot of you know. So that's why I'm not
Well,
very
yeah, but here's one
popular.
more thing I want to say. Okay. There are a lot, and if you think that this is not going to impact you, first of all, there's this thing called precedent in case law. And if it is okay for, people for mass people who don't have warrants and who are not willing to identify themselves, to arrest, to seize people, to violently seize them and take them away. And it's considered to be okay. I want to remind all of you of this. It can be applied to any of us, including those of us who are citizens. I also want to make one other point here. There are a lot of people who are not U.S. citizens, Uncle Warren, that look and talk exactly like you and me. They came here when they were very young. Europeans, Brits, Australians, whatever, came here when they were infants or when they were very young. For some reason, they never got citizenship. And you can't, but funnily enough, they don't seem to be targeted at this point.
You know
Why
why
might
that
that be?
is? I'll tell you
I
why.
can't imagine. Yeah.
Because the courts recently allowed the government to use racial profiling against them. So if you're of a particular color, or your name has a particular foreign sounding sound to it, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have probable cause. You can just scoop them right up, and that's not the slippery slope. Where that's like in the middle of the slope, heading
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. And then suddenly it becomes nothing about immigration and everything about who gets arrested, the level of force used in arrests, the level of punishments being meted out.
Well, you remember the rhetoric that Trump said coming in. He said he was going to go after the illegals who were criminals, right? That was his thing. Now he's just going after anybody. And
they're going to hospitals. They're going, they're going to courtrooms. They've got, domestic violence courtrooms. They've got domestic violence courtrooms, and people are feeling threatened. The kind of thing that can be happening here. And I will tell you, during the lockdowns, as you know, I was helping to staff the city of Chicago's hotlines during the lockdowns. And there were instances where, yes, there were people who were dealing with domestic violence who could not make use of regular resources because of this kind of fear. And they were afraid to make use of those resources because they were afraid of ICE picking them up and then put into a detention center where, heaven help them, what they would be exposed to there. So just a thought.
Yeah. I mean, and even people who are going through the legal process of becoming a citizen, they're nabbing them at the immigration offices. It's just
they're doing what they're supposed to do, and they're getting nabbed. I personally, I know of somebody who's here very legally, has all their papers, but has pretty much got off social media because of serious concerns about what could happen to him.
Well, and and also if you talk about a certain country that rhymes with Bizreal, you can get deported too. And we've seen that happen. We've seen students getting their visas revoked because of that.
Yeah.
And we have to get together physically to with our neighbors in the same room, talking about ideas. I noticed there was a person in here earlier, Eli, who was mentioning something about let's defend illegals whom we have no idea who they are. I mean, that's just kind of a ridiculous statement. I'm not trying to make fun of this person, but let's defend people whom we have no idea who they are. But at the same time, and then Nahilo says, well, why go after people that we don't know what they're about, right? It's 601 half a dozen. How about we have due process?
Yeah, it's
again?
called
What
due
happened to?
process and basic protections. If you are arresting somebody, your name and your badge number.
Yeah,
Who
yeah,
is this person? By
right.
what authority?
Yeah, and take off those masks. Take off those
By
masks.
what authority? And again, if I'm sitting there like this, I'm unarmed or not doing anything. I want to verify who you are. That is what I was told by police officers at these little Women Be Safe seminars.
Mm-hmm.
There it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, and even when you do that,
Yeah.
all right. There's there's a. I saw a story yesterday of these kids were watching their mother get kicked by ICE, and she'd done nothing wrong. Right? Now they're just going nuts out there. So they're just so drunk on power. They have $170 billion budget. That's like, I think they said it was like, if you put it up against defense budgets around the world, it was like the 13th largest. Just bigger than like some other countries, big countries that do that. It's insane why that is. So we have to stay diligent, folks, and we have to stay open-minded about stuff too. But at the same time, be skeptical, because as I always say, fuckery's afoot.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Lainey. That's some good stuff. You know, we got other news stories that we need to talk about.
We do.
And these are ones that we've been talking about before. And of course, we have to update these. And this one particularly worries me the most, Lainey, is what's going on with SNAP. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So states warn that SNAP payments will end, not delayed, end. Funding, this is from Supermarket News. Funding for SNAP, known as food stamps, has dried up because of the ongoing federal budget impasse and government shutdown. The U.S. Department of Agriculture will run out of money to fund the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, at the end of the month, which is coming up in about another week or so. And has asked states not to send out November payments. Funding for SNAP, known as food stamps, has dried up because of the ongoing federal budget impasse and government shutdown. The program supplies 42 million low-income people across the country with financial assistance for grocery purchases. Several states have issued warnings to SNAP recipients that their November benefits will not be paid until the shutdown ends. So the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services, for example, on Friday posted a notice stating that November SNAP benefits will not be issued until federal funds are released to the state, because Republicans in Washington, D.C. failed to pass a federal budget, causing the federal government shutdown. November 2025 SNAP benefits cannot be paid, the Pennsylvania DHS said in the notice on its website. The Illinois Department of Human Services also laid the blame for the potential cutoff of SNAP payments, which total about $350 million per month for 1.9 million Illinois residents, at the feet of Republican legislators and the Trump administration. SNAP customers will not have access to any new food benefits starting on November 1st unless the Trump administration and congressional Republicans reopen the government, the Illinois DHS said on its website. The Texas Department of Health and Human Services also posted a notice on its website stating that November SNAP benefits would not be paid out if the federal government shutdown continues past October 27th. Brooke Rollins, secretary of the USDA, pinned the blame on Democratic legislators. There we go. The old he said, she said kind of thing. In a press conference with the reporters on Friday, saying that they are prioritizing health care for illegal aliens and other issues. Jesus Christ. An important role of the government is to provide the safety net for those with the least among us, she said. We're going to run out of money in 2 weeks, so you're talking about millions upon millions of vulnerable families, of hungry families that are not going to have access to these programs because of this shutdown. Yeah, like you actually gave a shit about hungry people before this. Democrats in Congress have refused to support the Republicans' proposed federal budget because it eliminates funding for health insurance plans offered under the Affordable Care Act. The USDA could tap into a $6 billion contingency fund to make partial SNAP benefits payments for November, according to reports That would be short of the $8 billion needed, however. The Trump administration previously had diverted funds from tariff revenues to support the Women, Infants, and Children, that's WIC, nutrition assistance program during the shutdown, but it has not indicated it is willing to continue funding the SNAP program. Separately, SNAP payments could soon be reduced for many states because of new requirements that states meet a 6% threshold for error rates beginning in November. Only a handful of those states currently meet that benchmark, according to reports. So, and this is a huge situation right here. 1.9 million people. Well, no, how many did they say? 42 million low-income people across the country depend on SNAP, and and food ain't cheap.
Food ain't cheap, and
yeah.
Uncle Warren, you mentioned the source of this, and I want to make it clear that this report did not come from some left-wing blog or news source. It comes from Supermarket News, which is a trade publication for the supermarket, the grocery trade, the grocery industry, because one of the reasons why the USDA, and by the way, the USDA administers the food stamp program. It's not Health and Human Services. It's the USDA. Because when it originally started, they wanted to support American farmers by getting people to, making sure people had food from American farmers. It's kind of gone past that at this point. But a lot of the grocery industry gets a lot of money from these benefits. And particularly a lot of independent grocers could be hit very badly by this, particularly in November. Think about what happens in November. Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got the holiday, and then we've got the other the winter holidays that are coming up: Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, however you want to put it. But the point is that you're going to, if this continues, and there's not going to be the money to afford the holiday purchases that these stores are counting on, we could see the problem of food deserts getting worse, possible increase in prices as the grocery stores are trying to keep themselves afloat. Mm-hmm. At this time, this could have cascading effects. And remember, also, when they have shutdowns in these programs, it can be harder for people to get problems straightened out because they're not going to be getting the federal help to get problems straightened out. It can take weeks to get these benefits, or not, if not months, to get benefits straightened out. This has cascading effects. Right. At this time. And as far as Chuck is concerned, Chuck, I get your thing about the state, making the billionaires pay for this. The one thing that I'm concerned about, and I can see an actual tax, but the problem is that when you have billionaires subsidizing even good programs, you get something far more akin to feudalism than an actual democracy. And so we were looking at the individuals in this case instead of saying, look, this is, you're living here. This is what we're doing. And this is how our tax money, and it's not a lot. It's something like $30 a year that people are paying on average for these food programs. It's not that much. You've got a problem with that. So I don't know what's going to happen if those benefits don't get paid in November, which is probably the worst month to have this happen. Also, keep in mind, Uncle Warren, we're going into cold weather season.
Yeah. I was about
which
to
is
say
when
November,
people are going to be getting those heating subsidies. When we have the heating subsidies programs, we'll have to check on that to see where their funding is. But then people are going to be having to make choices between paying for heat and buying food. And also keep in mind the food pantries. They've got their own set of problems because if they have people who are either who are immigrants or are perceived to be immigrants, and we've already discussed how that happens, they may not be willing to stand in line. And this is where the food pantries, houses of worship, that sort of thing, need to be talking to get volunteers who are willing to do deliveries. But again, this is really going to be a situation. If this actually, if we step off this cliff, this is the problem we're going to be having.
Yeah, I think CoStar said it best. He said, "Welfare, social services are economic stabilizers." Yeah, because it
Yeah.
goes right back into the economy.
It goes right back.
It goes right back into the economy. It goes right back into these grocery stores, not just the giant supermarkets, but your local corner markets and stuff that
Yeah.
also take EBT, will take SNAP,
Yeah.
and and it's going to hurt them too, because a lot of those, like this, especially like the smaller grocers and stuff like that, kind of rely on the people with the SNAP benefits coming
Yeah.
in. So we'll keep an eye on this, and we'll update you as as this story progresses. And basically, I guess we'll check in November and see how people are doing who are on SNAP benefits, and see what effect this is having. But let's turn to the weather. Let's go to Chuck. Hey, Chuck, what's the forecast for today? No, let's take a look here at what's going on with the National Weather Service, and as Heartland EMAs continue reliance on the National Weather Service despite government shutdown. So, and this is out of KFVS at Cape Girardeau. 47 degrees in Cape Girardeau today. So the ongoing government shutdown is one of the longest in U.S. history. Now in its 20th day, only 2 other shutdowns have lasted longer. On Monday, the Senate voted on the Republican-backed plan to reopen the government, but once again, the proposal failed to get the 60 votes required to pass as Democrats push for an extension of health care tax credits. Now, I was talking about, I think that's you have to have 60 votes. I don't know if that's a filibuster or if that's to break a filibuster. I'm not quite sure, because heard John Fetterman, senator out of Pennsylvania, Lurch, who is siding with the Republicans to get rid of the filibuster. But that's a story for another day. I'm not sure if that pertains to this or not. But meanwhile, as the shutdown continues, thousands of federal employees are going to work every day not knowing when they will see another payday. The National Weather Service in Paducah was on hand, keeping folks safe and tracking the latest storm information on October 18th, all without knowing when they will get their next paycheck. The National Weather Service told Heartland News they are down 1 forecaster and a couple other employees, but are still ready and on deck for whenever severe weather decides to strike. A staff member said it is a public safety issue, and the National Weather Service will stay staffed and operational even without employees getting paid due to the shutdown. Orville Rowe is the director of the Emergency Management Agency for Jackson County. That's Jackson County, Illinois. He said without being in constant contact with the National Weather Service, it would be nearly impossible to prepare for severe storms and keep folks out of harm's way. Their service to us is substantial, especially with severe weather season. We had severe weather on Saturday evening that came through. He said, I reached out to them. We are going through the National Weather Service chat. That's their online chat function. They're connected to managers of each county. Having that connection without them, it would be a huge, huge loss for us. Just today, the NWS staff in Paducah showed their dedication by holding the weekly weather briefing for county emergency responders, even though they were not getting paid. So, and that's what you're seeing. A lot of these, must have, you must be at work kind of situations, and people not getting paid, saying, okay, well, eventually they'll get paid and then they'll get reimbursed for the pay that they missed, kind of thing. But still,
in the meantime, they have to go to a food bank, which is already being.
Yeah, and they can't get food stamps. They can't get SNAP because, well, yeah. So, and as despite what anybody thinks about like climate change, you may say, oh, well, it's natural, oh, it's man-made, whatever. The climate's changing.
Yeah.
We're starting, and you see like droughts and more devastating forest fires than you have in recent years. You're seeing more devastating hurricanes, more powerful ones. We dodged a bullet this year with a couple of storms. There was one, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a Cat 5. But fortunately, it was far enough out in the Atlantic that all it did was, cause some high surf along the East Coast. But if that thing had had gone on land, and there's already this thing with FEMA where Kristi Noem says, you don't get to send out payments, FEMA payments to anybody unless you run it by me first. And I believe the last hurricane that went through like Georgia and North Carolina, those people were waiting and waiting and waiting for funding. So it was like FEMA was bad already before then, and now it's just even worse. And now the National Weather Service, that thank goodness for these people that are staying on board to help people like that. That just tells you they're better people because of that than some people would be in that situation.
It's absolutely critical for we to have these experts. We need for example, we need the National Weather Service and their expertise. For one thing, they run the weather radio band, which has an actual tone service that can cause a weather alert radio to go off like a smoke alarm or a carbon monoxide detector to let you know if something's happening. So the National Weather Service is actually absolutely critical at this time, and it's a real concern when you don't have the emergency management people, because they're the ones who are monitoring. They're the ones that are working with the Red Cross and the Salvation Army and local organizations to have shelters and to provide food and information to people who are trying to get insurance payment processed. It's very, very critical. What I want to point out, and this is where it gets kind of interesting, it goes back to something that you were talking about yesterday, Uncle Warren, with Amazon servers going down.
Mm-hmm.
Remember all that?
Yeah.
So back in 2021, I reported on Civically Minded about what was going on with the Amazon warehouse, where there was a horrible tornadoes that were going through, and the Amazon warehouse workers who were killed because they weren't allowed to keep their phones and notifications on them, and they were not properly. They didn't have a room. There are safe rooms that you can get for not a lot of money that would have kept them safe. They didn't have any of that. But one of the things that was also came up at that time was that the National Weather Service had had a chat room, and it was a chat room for professionals, journalists, meteorologists, various emergency management, disaster management professionals, where they could talk during these disasters. They could talk to each other, give each other information, and it was a real-time information opportunity for them. They were running on a 15-year-old, I want to say it was a Microsoft chat room that kept collapsing. And when those tornadoes were coming through, it collapsed, and they set up an ad hoc chat room on Slack, which is a private company that was being run on AWS, Amazon's servers. And okay, I understand. They had to communicate, but it made me very nervous to know that they were on a private organization servers, which has a habit of going down. And that was a real concern. Well, I was doing some research yesterday on this, and come to find out that the National Weather Service's chat room is now officially hosted on Slack, which is still on AWS.
Yeah. And what kind of and when it went down the last couple of days, thank goodness there hasn't been any severe weather, at least in the United States, that could have impeded getting the information out. And you mentioned meteorologists too, and I worked in TV down south, and I worked with a lot of meteorologists. Weather was kind of like my I always liked the storm chasers. I was like, man, those people are crazy. But I always hung out with the meteorologists and like saw how they did their thing. And yes, I mean, without the National Weather Service, some people think, oh well, the weatherman knows that they just predict, and if they get wrong, they still get paid stuff. They joke about that. And it's like, well, they're not. They rely on the National Weather Service for their information that they can pass along to you. Right. So they can have their tracking models that they have this data that comes from the National Weather Service into their own television, computer programs that run all their graphics and stuff. And without that, we're back to putting magnets, like from the 60s and 70s, the weathermen had magnets with the H and the L and the temperatures on there. And a lot of times they had the National Weather Service, but it's not as sophisticated and tied to a cloud like AWS as it is now. And that's what makes it even more scary. So God forbid if we get like some sort of huge, massive hurricane and all of a sudden the cloud goes down, it's scary stuff. So, as let's move on here to, when you're listening to weather and stuff, you're usually listening to it on radio too, right? Yeah. And what if you're in a Tesla and you want to, you're going someplace and you want to know if there's bad weather in the area, or if there is bad weather, where is it going, right? And if you're in a Tesla, you're not going to know that, because after AM cuts, Tesla dropping FM radio from entry-level models. So after removing AM radio from its electric vehicles, Tesla is now taking the next step in its quiet retreat from broadcast, eliminating FM radio altogether from its newest entry-level models, even as lawmakers in Washington push to keep AM tuners mandatory. Sorry, we have somebody blowing the leaves out there. So I'll try to talk loud. The automaker's new Model 3 standard and Model Y standard trims have officially launched without a FM radio capability. That's according to Motor Trend, relying entirely on streaming and internet-based audio program. Oh, look, another cloud. Another cloud. Shut it. I'm trying to do the news, lad. I find that if you yell at them in Scottish, it tends to be a little more powerful. Tesla's move makes it the first mainstream auto brand. And look, and he's going away too. See, it works. To cut out over-the-air radio entirely after phasing out the AM band starting in 2020. The timing is striking, considering Congress's current bid to pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act, a bipartisan bill that would require automakers to keep AM radio tuners in all new vehicles as a safety feature at no additional cost. The bill, championed by lawmakers including Ed Markey and Ted Cruz, those senators have received vocal support from broadcasters, emergency managers, and first responders who argue that AM remains essential for public safety and emergency communication. The act has more than 300 co-sponsors in the U.S. House and a supermajority in the Senate and is awaiting a vote. The decision is a bold one given the data. According to Edison's research share of ear study for Westwood One's audio active group, AM/FM radio still accounts for 51% of all in-car audio time among Tesla drivers, outpacing podcasts at 12% and ad-free Sirius XM at 10%. Even more notably, 74% of all ad-supported listening in Teslas happens on, guess what, AM/FM radio. In a survey of over, especially your local ads too. In a survey of over 3,200 U.S. car owners conducted in late 2024, Xperi found that 62% of drivers would rule out buying a car without AM/FM reception. Q's 2025 in-vehicle visuals report found that all 100 of the best-selling new car models in the U.S. have FM radios. For the radio industry, this shift represents more than lost dashboard space. It's a direct challenge to the role of free over-the-air broadcasting in emergencies and community connection. Edison's data shows that AM/FM listening in cars among adults 25 to 54 has returned to pre-pandemic levels, climbing back to 51% in Q2 of this year after falling to 38% in 2022. Earlier this year, startup automaker Slate Auto announced that its upcoming minimalist EV would include neither AM nor FM radio. Tisk, shame on you. Slate's leadership framed the decision as part of a philosophy to remove everything that isn't a car, leaving buyers to add audio accessories like Bluetooth speakers or phone mounts as optional extras. Radio is as much a part of a car as a heart is a part of a human being. I'm sorry. Radios have been in cars for almost as long as radios have been and cars together have been around. because everybody likes rocking out to a tune while you're driving. Come on. As automakers continue stripping traditional radio from electric vehicles, Tesla's influence could accelerate the trend and raise new questions about whether federal protections will need to expand beyond AM to safeguard all broadcast access in the connected car era. So, yeah, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with the National Weather Service, right?
Uh-huh.
You know, if everything's going cloud-based, if you got to get all your radio off of cell towers that will go down in bad weather, then you're going to be screwed, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you're going to be screwed. And the local weather, your local meteorologist is going, or your local your local DJ, and there's a level of trust, particularly in emergency situations where people are already stressed. If they have that familiarity, you know all about this, Uncle Warren.
Mm-hmm.
You have this level of trust. They know that people are looking out for them. That is absolutely critical. And this is removing a potential lifeline during really bad situations, and where we've already been compromised because we might have chat rooms that go down, we may have cell towers that go down, we may have the cloud goes down to get that information out, and it's just restricting this ever more for people who are in their vehicles. Also, I think a couple of things are going on here. Elon Musk is doing this deliberately. They saw, when Ford was going to take out AM radio, they buckled when everybody they got so much pushback from legislators as well as the general public and the radio and the broadcast industry. That did happen. Elon Musk is doing this just to bother people, in my personal opinion. But I want to actually go back to a couple of things here. First of all, Nilio, I thank you for this comment, and I would agree. I mean, I see these horrible Tesla trucks or whatever they're called, and they're utter eyesores. I don't like Teslas, and I would agree with you, except the problem is getting what's coming to you. Well, as you say, if you're in a Tesla at this point, you can get what's coming for you. Just saying, sorry, not sorry. I would agree with you if I was in a really bad mood, which I'm not. But what I would say is that an uninformed driver in a time of some kind of disaster or crisis is a danger to not only themselves, but to others around them. If the person is not knowing to pull over, or there's going to be a detour over here. If they are not staying informed, they are in the dark and they are a danger to others. And so that's my thing there. Again, being a good neighbor means you stay informed. So that's where I'm at with that, even though I'm fairly sympathetic. Also, again, Bila, you're absolutely right. This is what I've been saying about radio for a long time. This is a broader thing, not so much, does not have the disaster impact here, but they can't track what you're listening to over the airwaves. There's not a cookie that's chasing you all over your device, over your computer. You listen to the radio, and what is on that radio is between you and that radio.
Well, they are trying to get you. I'm not saying the radio stations themselves, but
yeah,
they're trying to get you the trend of listening to the radio on the internet.
Yeah, and that's fine, and it can be useful in some situations. But and they want you to do that. It's digital and all that. But the reality is that that's trackable, and they're harvesting your data when you're listening to the radio on a radio. That's not happening. For those people who are concerned about privacy, your old-fashioned TV, and yes, there are plenty of TV stations that are still over the air. You can get for $35 a broadcast TV antenna, plug it into your TV, and you can get in Chicago, it's something like 30 stations, something like that, that are available over the air. You can absolutely do that, or get yourself a regular radio. I'm looking around for mine right now. I don't have one handy, but that, if you want to talk about privacy, go ahead and do that. That's my advice. But more seriously with this, I think this is Elon Musk just tweaking the public. But I do think that this is a dangerous trend, particularly in light of the ever collapsing stabilization that certain agencies do provide our civilization.
Well, speaking of Elon Musk, I just had this thought too. Like, why is he taking radios out of there, making you want to use like cell towers or his Starlink? Yeah, because the radio competes with this Starlink, and so does the cell towers. But if he can get you to use his Starlink in his Teslas, not saying, just saying. Well, we were talking about local radio stations. That's the thing too. It's like with a lot of cell towers and stuff like that. Or if you're doing internet radio or something, a lot of times you won't get the local ads like you would on your local radio stations, unless you're listening to that radio station through the internet. And if they're trying to get people to listen to the radio through the internet and stop listening to off-air broadcasts like that, then that's another problem that you're going to have with the cloud-based stuff. Like we've been seeing. And that leads us to this one here, this story about radio stations as U.S. public media funds officially dry up, local radio stations struggle.
Yeah.
For Scott Smith, the cuts to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting are existential. He is the general manager of Allegheny Mountain Radio, which he runs alongside program manager Heather Nidley. The funds were slashed as part of U.S. President Trump's vast tax cut and spending bill that was signed into law in July. As a result, the station, which has been on air for more than 4 decades, lost 65% of its funding. We're here to serve our communities and to fulfill our mission of giving them news, giving them entertainment, giving them emergency alerts, and giving them school closings. We do lost and found pet notices. We do funeral announcements. We have a listing of community events that is read multiple times a day. We do weather forecasts. We're a critical part of the community, Smith said. The rescissions bill that Trump signed allows the U.S. Congress to claw back funding that had been approved and pulls back $9 billion in funding, including $1 billion from the CPB, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. At the end of September, those funds officially dried up. The money had already been allocated by previous Congress to fund public media for 26 and 27. Now stations are scrambling to find ways to fill the holes. The Trump administration has gone after news organizations that have presented any critical coverage of him, including the Wall Street Journal, after its coverage of a suggestive letter purportedly written by Trump to the late sex offender Jeff Epstein for his birthday. In September, he tried to sue the New York Times for allegedly being a virtual mouthpiece for the Democratic Party. His leverage over public media is significant because it is partially funded by federal tax dollars. The White House first signed an executive order to defund public media in May. That was quickly blocked because funding decisions are made by Congress, not the White House. Next, Trump pressured congressional Republicans to put forth the rescissions bill that fulfilled the mission of his previous executive order. To justify his call for cuts, in May, the White House released a list of segments from NPR and PBS programs that it said had liberal bias, as it included many segments about the experience of the trans community. There we go. The White House also cited a report alleging PBS favored Democrats. That report was from the openly partisan Media Research Center, which has a stated goal to promote conservative values. Kind of an oxymoron these days, conservative values. A key but overlooked problem with the cuts is that they overwhelmingly harm stations that do not even cover the White House or much national politics at all. Allegheny Mountain Radio, AMR, is one of those stations, comprising 3 affiliates for 3 counties straddling the West Virginia and Virginia border. On their airwaves, listeners will find gospel, folk, and country music. What is it? What is that for the Blues Brothers? We got both kinds of music, country and Western.
And Western, yeah.
Yeah, as well as the coverage of local football games and town hall meetings. And I'm telling you, like, especially in the South, those football games on the radio, you would think, oh, nobody's listening to football. Oh, yes, they are. There are a butt ton of people who listen to their local radio stations
Big time.
for football games because their kids are involved in it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
AMR carries NPR's national newscast and, more importantly, serves as the on-the-ground voice when severe weather hits. Unlike in other regions of the county, there is no other alternative to get real-time local news. The nearest local news station is several hours away, separated by winding country roads. When there's severe weather, AMR is the only way locals get vital information, like road closure announcements, because of floodwaters. Just a few years ago, we had a deluge of rain coming down and flooding parts of the county. At that point, when something like that happens, the radio stations really is the only way to get that information out quickly to our listeners and let them know where it's happening. AMR program manager Nidley told Al Jazeera, that's where this is coming from. AMR is in a part of the country where cell phone signal and wireless access are sparse because of its proximity to what is called the National Radio Quiet Zone near the Green Bank Observatory, which limits the use of radio frequency and other signal methods so that they do not interfere with their equipment. This requires special equipment to point radio signals away from the observatory. With the region's low population density, there's a limited business case for a station, but there is a case for public service. The community depends on AMR for emergency alerts. Even on a personal level, during major storms, Smith said people have shown up at their stations when their phones stopped working, asking if AMR could broadcast a message to let their family and friends know they were safe. It's all part of that community bond like that, right? Mm-hmm. Despite their strong community focus, these stations may not benefit from the same level of donor support seen by larger public stations across the country due to limited local enterprises and resources. It is trying, in order to stay afloat, the station is actively soliciting donations on its website. While small community stations like those serving Bath and Pocahontas counties in West Virginia and Highland County, Virginia, through AMR don't produce national newscasts or air segments that ruffle feathers in Washington, they are still the ones that are most at risk of being hit hardest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, the government talks all this big talk, but it's always the little stations that get hurt.
Yeah.
Small stations like ours are the ones who will suffer because of these cuts. We feel like we are the baby that got thrown out with the bathwater because there's so much emphasis on the talking points around NPR and PBS. That's a good analogy right there too. It is the baby out with the bathwater. Mm-hmm. It's like the rest of us, the small community stations have absolutely been forgotten in this equation, he said. The cuts, however, hit stations across the U.S. in big markets too. WNYC in New York City lost 4% of its funding. WBUR in Boston, San Francisco's KLAW, and KERA in Dallas, Texas all saw 5% cuts. Stations like these have large donor bases or listeners like you. As their hosts say during pledge drives, big market stations might be able to make up the difference, says Alex Curley, a former product manager at NPR, who recently launched a platform called Adopt a Station, which shows which public media stations are most at risk of losing funding. When you think about stations that rely on federal funding for 50% or more of their revenue, it's not because they're asking for a handout. It's a literal public service for those stations, Curley said. But in counties where the population is sparse and industry is limited, that donor base is not as plentiful. That's the case with AMR. We are in a very rural area. We are an area where there are not a whole lot of businesses, so that amount of income simply cannot be made up through extra donations or extra underwriting, Smith said. In a July Substack post, Curley, who was involved in NPR station finances until he left the network in 2024 amid layoffs, said that 15% of stations are at risk of closure. His website has provided some reprieve. I only expected maybe a few dozen people to visit the site. My biggest hope was to get a couple of donations that went towards a station at risk. It's the website's been shared thousands of times. I've even heard from stations that were identified as being at risk of closing. They told me they're getting an influx of donations from out of state through the site. It's been an incredible response, Curley said. However, he argues this is only a temporary fix. The real danger will be in 6 months, a year, 2 years, when people have forgotten about public media. These stations basically are losing federal funding forever. Donations in the short term are really great, but in the long term, they're going to have to figure out ways to keep donors engaged and to keep donations flowing to them, or they might close, Curley said. And you also have to think about operating costs going up as well. So you got to put that in the mix. Public radio is also a lifeline connecting rural communities to the rest of the nation and providing life-saving emergency broadcasting and weather alerts. Nearly 3 in 4 Americans say they rely on their public radio stations for alerts and news for their public safety. NPR's Catherine Maher said in a statement on July 18th, following the Senate vote. In fact, while the Senate considered amendments, a 7.3 earthquake struck off the coast of Alaska, prompting 3 coastal stations to start broadcasting live tsunami warnings, urging their communities to head to high ground, Maher said. PBS faces similar pressures, and many of its stations are also at risk of closure, according to Adopt a Station's data. These cuts will significantly impact all of our stations, but will be especially devastating to smaller stations and those serving large rural areas. Many of our stations, which provide access to free, unique local programming and emergency alerts, will now be forced to make hard decisions in the weeks and months ahead. PBS President and CEO Paula Kerger said in a statement after the Senate vote. The push to defund public media isn't a new one for the GOP. Republicans have long argued that the media is not a core function of government. In 2012, GOP presidential nominee Mitt Romney said he would eliminate subsidies to PBS during a debate moderated, ironically, by then PBS NewsHour anchor Jim Lehrer. And look how that turned out. Good job, Mitt. In the 90s, then House Speaker Newt Gingrich promised to zero out funding for CPB, arguing it should be privatized. Of course, got to put ads on there. You want to get those ads on there. And in the 1980s, Reagan attempted to slash $80 million from public media, roughly $283 million in today's dollars, though Congress told him to kick rocks. Cuts to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting are the latest wave of the White House cutting back on government-funded media arms, including reductions to the U.S. Agency for Global Media, led in part by senior advisor Carrie Lake. She's fun. Lake is a former Phoenix, Arizona news anchor known for denying the 2020 election results in which Trump lost to Biden for the presidency. She's also known for promoting baseless conspiracy theories and for refusing to accept her own defeat for governor and senator bids in Arizona in 2022 and 24, respectively. She's been behind the agency, effectively shuttering Voice of America, which has not published any new stories or uploaded new videos to its YouTube page since mid-March. Last month, a federal judge in Washington blocked the firing of workers at VOA, which affected more than 500 staffers. The Trump administration called the decision outrageous and vowed to appeal. Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, which broadcasts in 27 languages across 23 countries, faced challenges similar to VOA. However, the European Union has helped to keep the network up and running with $6.2 million in emergency funding. Representatives for the U.S. Agency for Global Media did not respond. And, okay. So, not much left here. These cuts come along with alongside other threats to freedom of expression in the private sector. Soon after the funding cuts were signed into law, Paramount announced the cancellation of The Late Show. The host comedian Stephen Colbert, a longtime critic of the president, had only days earlier called out Paramount, the show's parent company, for settling a lawsuit with Trump. The suit stemmed from Trump's claim that an interview with his 2024 presidential rival Kamala Harris was doctored. Although the network had initially called the lawsuit meritless, it ultimately settled for $16 million. That's funny how that works. Colbert called the settlement a big fat bribe, noting that Paramount had a then pending merger with Skydance Media, owned by David Ellison, son of Oracle CEO Larry Ellison, a key Trump ally. The merger has since been approved. Paramount has said that the decision is purely financial in nature. Months later, following stand-up comedian Jimmy Kimmel's comments on Charlie Kirk's death, Federal Communications Commission Chairman Brenda Carr appeared on a right-wing podcast to criticize the remarks and urged Disney, the parent company of ABC, where Jimmy Kimmel Live airs, to cancel the show. He was taken off, but eventually he came back not long after that. Nexstar Media Group, one of the largest TV station operators in the U.S., which is waiting on an FCC approval of its merger with Tegna, announced they would no longer carry the program. Disney subsequently suspended the show, though the decision was short-lived as it returned to the airways within a week. You know, I don't know how significant public broadcasting is today as opposed to when we were coming up. It was very significant.
Very significant at a time
were,
when you only had a couple of channels and you had to walk across the room to change the channel on the TV. But I think this points out, first of all, that it's not just the NPR, the major urban center, university-based, sometimes NPR stations that cater to latte liberals. There are a lot of public stations out there that are providing, that are a reliable source of news to smaller communities, particularly a lot of these small rural communities don't have the greatest internet in the world. So and people may not be able to afford streaming services or that level of internet connectivity. And so public radio and television is critical for these folks to get not only news and information, but also culture. If you're looking at televisions, again, the kids are getting Sesame Street. Things of that nature, which can be very helpful in terms of language development and supporting what the kids are learning at school. So I think that people need to keep in mind that what you think of as public broadcasting is not necessarily what public broadcasting is to everybody else in the country.
Right. Yeah.
And I mentioned last week that they're auctioning off Bob Ross paintings because to help support public broadcasting. He got his thing going on public broadcasting. Public broadcasting has some excellent, I was watching one show. It was a Scandinavian cooking show. And things that you're not necessarily going to find on the big flashy cable networks, but excellent production values and information. This sort of media is critical in communities. So again, we can have this discussion about whether the government should be supporting that, but just to pull this away is going to harm communities that are not served by other media sources. Also, when you start getting into Voice of America and some of these state media services, keep in mind that there were, countries around the world that depend on those shortwave or longwave broadcasts when there's havoc going on, where the local broadcasters cannot broadcast either because they're in a state of civil war or because their transmitters have been devastated and they can't easily rebuild them because they're developing nations. Those long-wave, shortwave broadcasts from other governments can be very, very useful at those times. So mass media has become part and parcel of our civilization.
Yeah, it has. And I was saying before that, some places, now you have kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, that sort of thing, but a lot of people don't have access to that. And so they were relying on public, I never went to kindergarten or had pre-K or anything like that. I learned how to count to 10 in Spanish before I learned how to count to 10 in English. Why? Because I was in love with Maria from Sesame Street.
You were, and Luis was your great foe at that point, right?
That lucky guy. But yeah, you learn, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You learn all these kind of the bottom level basics for education that helps you out once you actually go to school. Right. So you're not sitting there trying to catch up and whatnot. Now today, probably it's more so like you're going to have pre-kindergarten and kindergarten now that are somewhat financially feasible if they're not already public, or run publicly through your local schools, that sort of thing. But, to take that away for petty reasons like that, just because you don't like the message of the program, I mean, that is it's very sad. So but we should move on.
We're having a great show here, but we're talking, man.
You know,
And we
we
got
need to.
these great folks who are watching us right now. We appreciate all of you. Thank you. Please do like, share, and subscribe if you want. Subscribe to our Substack so you can get emails with the day's links and get that notification in. And if you can, please do share the show with people that you happen to like, either on social media or let your friends know about it. We really appreciate all your support as we're getting the show launched.
Yeah, we got information crawling down below there, so you can hit up our link tree, our Substack, and that'll give you all the information that you'll need. AI can be a fascinating thing, and sometimes it can be
Yes.
a very scary thing. And I don't know if you guys have seen this.
Oh, Lord.
This is let me do this. Where did it go? Boop. Let's bring that down here. This is this video about Trump pooping on New York. Let's see, there's King Trump there. And originally this video had Highway to the Danger Zone, or Danger Zone, I guess, by Kenny Loggins. We're going to talk about that in just a second. See, look, poopies. Oh, that's that young kid that's like the Democratic op that's getting paid, the paid influencer. So he's pooping on them. Look, I got to put on the crown. Look, it's Burger King. That's the Burger King right there. So, fun stuff. There
Ladies
you
and
go.
gentlemen, the President and Vice President of the United States.
Yeah. Isn't that fun? And then Cafefe for those in the know there. Oops, sorry. Whoop. So apparently, Kenny Loggins had a bit to say about this, since it was his song that was used. Let me get this over here. So, whoop, there we go. Oh, I forgot to do that. So Trump's fake video featured Danger Zone musician Kenny Loggins wants it scrubbed. There he is. Singer-songwriter Kenny Loggins said it's not all right. Everybody worry about me. See, because that's from Caddyshack. So, is asking Trump to remove the audio of one of his performances from a contentious AI-generated video that Trump posted, as we just showed you there, on his Truth Social account Saturday night. In the fake video, just describing the video, crown-wearing Trump is in a fighter jet, emblazoned King Trump, accompanied by Loggins singing Danger Zone, his hit single from '86, from the Top Gun soundtrack. The plane dumps sludgy brown material. That's a nice way of calling it the poopies.
The
poopies. He kept putting the poopies on there. Over crowds of protesters carrying American flags. And so he shit on American flags. That's nice. That's a good one. This is the guy who wants to put you in jail for burning a flag, but apparently shitting on one is totally fine. Signs in what appears to be New York City's Times Square. The video was published as an apparent reply to the widespread No Kings protest over the weekend that took place across various cities around the country. On Saturday evening, the official White House account posted a fake image of on Twitter of Trump and Vice President Vance wearing crowns, juxtaposed with a fake image of Representative Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Chuck Schumer in sombreros. That's that. Keep it classy, right? In a statement sent to NPR on Monday morning, Loggins wrote, "This is an unauthorized use of my performance of Danger Zone. Nobody asked me for my permission, which I would have denied, and I request that my recording on this video is removed immediately." Danger Zone was written by Top Gun score composer Giorgio Moroder and songwriter Tom Whitlock, with Loggins as the performer. And this ended up being the only time Trump's played music at his rallies too, and some of these artists are like, "Don't you play your shit at my rallies?"
It happened with Sarah Palin when she was running with John McCain. Allegedly, her nickname back in high school was Barracuda, and they were playing Barracuda at the rallies, and the Madams Wilson of Heart objected to this. So there it is.
Yeah. So, word to the wise: don't use copyrighted material unless you want to pay the price. I really shouldn't have taken a bite of that Pop-Tart when I got to read. I forgot.
Well, when Pop-Tarts are around, I tend to forget things too. So
they're so irresistible.
I know, particularly with coffee.
Just want to hug them and squeeze them.
And eat them.
Nom, 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 nom. Well, logins continue. I can't imagine why anybody would want their music used or associated with something created with the sole purpose of dividing us. Too many people are trying to tear us apart, and we need to find new ways to come together. We're all Americans, and we're all patriotic. There is no us and them. That's not who we are, nor is it what we should be. It's all of us. We're in this together, and it is my hope that we can embrace music as a way of celebrating and uniting each and every one of us. There is a long history of musicians objecting to the current president, as we were talking about there, with the Hart sisters, among other political leaders using their work to send political messages. However, such use is generally legal as long as rights holders are paid correctly. The only use that performers and songwriters can specifically prohibit is the use of songs in campaign advertisements. Even so, many artists choose to make such objections public so that a general audience is aware of their stance. So NPR reached out to the White House for a response to Logan's specific objections and his request that his performance be removed. In reply, White House spokesperson David R. Engel did not respond to NPR's questions, but sent NPR an image from the film Top Gun of stars Tom Cruise and the late Val Kilmer, caption, "I feel the need for speed." We have such morons in our government. Various musicians and their representatives, including the White Stripes and the estate of Isaac Hayes, have filed civil suits against Trump alleging copyright infringement. The White Stripes dropped their suit in November 2024. The Hayes suit, which was filed against the president, his reelection campaign, and the activist group Turning Point Action, is continuing to wend its way through federal courts in Atlanta. So, yeah, well, that's just more bravado. That's what Trump does. He doesn't ask permission. He asks for forgiveness. And in his case, he just doesn't ask for permission or forgiveness for any of the dumb shit that he does. He pushes it, and then he may stop once a court tells him to stop. But until then, he's just going to keep doing stuff like that. And although I do respect the artistry of the AI making poopies out of the jet, I kind of have to side with Kenny Loggins on this one. What do you think?
I never thought I would say that, but yeah, I'm going to be footloose and
you're terrible. You're terrible.
Yeah. We knew
leave
that.
the bad jokes to me. All right. You're supposed to be the adult here. I'm just the guy I'm just the crazy monkey guy. Lainey, we're both Chicago people, right?
We are.
And have you ever heard of the Chicago rat hole?
I have.
Yeah. Didn't know it was a thing. It was actually on Google Maps too. If you go to, I think it might still be there. If you go to Google Maps and look for a particular part of Chicago, you'll see the rat hole, and you're like, wait, is this code? What are you guys talking about? What is this business, this rat hole you're talking about? Well, researchers discover shocking truth about Chicago's rat hole. And rats, look at that. This is going to be punny. Researchers think they have debunked the origin of Chicago's so-called rat hole, one of the Windy City's weirdest local landmarks. Hold on. The rat hole wasn't what you think. It wasn't some back alley bar that served as a speakeasy for the city's notorious gangster clientele or a tenement stuffed to the brim with junk. I've lived in a couple of rat holes, if that's the definition. It was actually a full body impression of an unlucky critter that got trapped in wet sidewalk cement in the city's Roscoe Village neighborhood about 20 or 30 years ago. The imprint closely resembles that of a spread-eagled rat, complete with outlines of what appears to be tiny claws, arms and legs, and even a tail. The rat hole went viral early last year after comedian Winslow Dumaine posted a photo of it on the tweeters. The post drew curious tourists to the site at all hours, with some leaving coins and other odd objects around the impression as a tribute. Only in Chicago, right? The
Yeah.
constant traffic drew complaints from neighbors, though, and in April 2024, someone filled the impression with a substance resembling plaster. City workers eventually removed that slab of sidewalk and took it to the City Hall County building. A plaque honoring the rat hole remains at the actual site. Researchers hailing from the University of Tennessee, New York Institute of Technology, College of Osteopathic Medicine, and the University of Calgary published a paper Wednesday in the journal Biology Letters that concludes the rat hole was most likely created not by the titular rodent, but a squirrel or a muskrat. Well, I guess isn't a muskrat still considered like a rat? It's got rat in the name. The researchers studied online photos of the rat hole and compared measurements of the imprint to museum specimens of animals commonly found in the Chicago area. The presence of arms, legs, and a tail excluded birds, snakes, and airplanes. Lenny Bruce is not afraid. Oh, sorry. Frogs and turtles, shrinking the possibilities to a mammal. The claw outlines further reduced the field to rats, mice, squirrels, chipmunks, and muskrats, the study said. When they get like animal CSI out there. The creature's long forelimbs, third digits, and hind paws were too large for a rat, but fell into the measurement ranges for eastern gray squirrels, fox squirrels, and muskrats. The most probable suspect is the eastern gray squirrel, given how abundant that creature is in the Chicago area, the study concluded. Other researchers have theorized that a squirrel created the imprint. The study acknowledged cement is typically wet during the day and rats are nocturnal, and the creature didn't leave any tracks, suggesting a squirrel misjudged a leap or slipped from a branch and landed in the wet cement, the study noted. That's some Columbo level investigation right there. The imprint didn't show any sign of a bushy tail, but hair often lacks the rigidity to create deep, well-defined impressions, and it would have been surprising to find such an imprint, the study said. We therefore propose that the specimen be rechristened the Windy City Sidewalk Squirrel, a name more fitting of its likely origins and more aligned with the evidence at hand. I said good day, sir.
I like how rigidity provides deep impressions.
And sometimes a mystery don't need to be solved. You know what I mean? I don't think we needed to get the crime scene investigation out there to try and figure out what the hole was, right? Why can't it just be the rat hole? It's been there for 20, 30 years. Just let it stay the rat hole. That's my 2 cents. What do you think? Muskrat love. That's funny. Did you enjoy that? Did you enjoy getting your bubble bursted over not knowing, that it's not
by a bushy tail? Rat? Yes.
Yeah, bushy tail. Yeah. Did that float your boat?
It did. It did. It did.
Well, that's it for now. But we want to.
There is something we have to talk about.
We got one more thing. I mentioned this on the show yesterday. Of course, I'm good friends with people at Chicago Corner, and
as am I.
Of course, and we both support Chicago Corner extensively, and we feel like in this space in particular, they've been given a raw deal in their court cases against Hardlens Media. Hardlens Media has been invited or have weaseled their way onto various platforms to talk about their side of the story, but it doesn't seem like anybody else wants to hear Chicago Corner's side of the story. So we're going to give you your opportunity next week as Chicago Corner sets the record straight. That'll be next Wednesday, October 29th. Oh, hang on a second. Let me turn that off. So next Wednesday, October 29th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on my YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook channels. We're going to have members of Chicago Corner on, as well as former members of Chicago Corner and supporters of the show to set the record straight. Basically what we said, right? It's so there's been a lot of misinformation, to put it very kindly, coming out of Hardlens Media.
That's very kind.
Yeah. Flat out lies. I'll go ahead and say that.
Character assassination.
Yeah. And harassment too.
Yeah.
For not just Chicago Corner, but other, people even supporting Chicago Corner have been harassed. And it's just nobody knows the other side of the story because none of these other bigger channels want to have Chicago Corner on and let them talk. So we're going to have them on, and we're going to have very extensive information to share with you about them and some of the nefarious things they've been doing to Chicago Corner, and that they've been just flat out lying to their people about.
Well, and what we pointed out is that it's going to be on your channel, Extra Bullet. It's going to be on the Extra Bullet network. It's not going to be on the Undercurrent. This is not this is not an Undercurrent
Right.
production. But I'll be on there. People know. I think the people who know my history, and which has been, I think, largely misrepresented in many ways. And it's going to give a chance for us to tell our side of the story and what happened, and let people make up their own minds.
And it's going to be very detailed too. Unlike what Heartlands Media has been doing, is just basically telling you bits and pieces out of context. We're going to tell you the whole story, the whole timeline, and we're going to have links in the description for you yourself to look at that information and make your own judgments about who's right and who's wrong. But I think once you actually see the evidence, some of you are going to be very shocked at what you're going to find out about Heartlands Media. And I take no pleasure in doing this. None of us do. In fact,
this is deeply painful.
Nobody even wanted this to even go to trial. All Heartlands Media had to do was take down one video and give Chicago Corner their $100 that they owed them. And that's it. There would have been no court trials. There would have been no labor disputes, maybe. But it just snowballed into this thing. And they've been telling their audiences that Chicago Corner has been they're the whole bad people behind this thing. But when Heartlands Media could have stopped this long ago, but they decided not to.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's going to be a week from today at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on the Extra Bullet channel on my YouTube. It's going to be on Extra Bullet, the Rumble channel, and also Jonathan Dearman on Facebook. That's the Extra Bullet headquarters on Facebook. So please tune in and listen to the information. It's not a thing of where we're trying to change your minds or make you think a certain way. We just want to give you all the information and let you process it yourselves and make up your own minds. And I said this yesterday, there's two reasons I'm doing this. One, I want Chicago Corner people to get their stories out and tell their side of the story. And two, there are people who watch Heartlands Media that also watch my shows. So that means they're putting these lies and fundraising off these lies on my people too. And that pisses me the hell off. I'm not going to stand for that. And that's another reason why I'm helping Chicago Corner with this, because we got to set the record straight. The truth, the real truth has to come out. And hopefully you'll be there for that this coming Wednesday night, a week from today, at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central Time. So thank you.
And also, from my part, my name is continually being dragged into this.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that I am not a I'm not a part of Chicago Corner LLC, and I'm not a party to any of the lawsuits or legal conflicts. My name keeps on getting dragged into this, and I'd like to tell my side of the story.
Yeah. I took a few hits too. So
you have.
Yeah, I want to tell mine and others too. We're going to have people on who have had some form of interaction with Heartlands Media, and they have their stories to tell too. So, like I said, this isn't a witch hunt. This is a fact-finding mission. Well, actually, this is a fact-sharing mission for us. We have plenty of information. You have no idea that this show may go 5 hours. I'm here for it, and I'm going to be here for it, and you can watch it later on. Thank you, Noman. Thank you so much, Nilio, asking viewers to take a side. Basically, cancel culture. I don't like that any of this is happening. Right.
But I know that there are people who have said some very nasty things about me, in particular. Also, my good friends. And we would like to discuss, we would tell our side of the story so people can make up their minds.
Yeah. And that's it. That's all there is to it. I mean, is it not fair for one person, for one side to share all their information or what their side of the story, and then you don't hear the other side? It's not like the people of Chicago Corner are some faceless corporation that just appeared out of nowhere. I mean, these are people that were friends with.
They were my friends, people in my home. We were in each other's homes. We supported each other through various situations, in life circumstances. And this, I feel, was unnecessary and tragic. And I'm deeply sorrowful about this.
And they've been Hardlines Media has been putting out video after video for at least the past year that is just full of misinformation that we're going to go through and debunk one by one as the show goes. Not like I said, we're not asking you to pick sides or anything like that. We just want you to hear the information. Yeah. Take it for what it's worth, and then you make your own decisions.
Your own minds.
Especially if it's involving, if you're a financial supporter of Hardlines Media, you may want to know that information. You may want to know, hey, look, I'm supporting them financially. Maybe I should know a little bit more about how they're, how they're functioning and what they're doing with my money. So, but you're going to find out a week from today. Learn more,
and you can I can't control how you feel about me. None of us can control how others feel about us. But if you would be willing to do us the honor to tell our stories, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, and that's all we ask. So, guys and gals and all other pals, we appreciate you.
We love you.
We had a great. We love doing this show, and we love providing you with the information that you can use, the news you can use. That's what we're all about. And I appreciate you, Lainey, for all your hard work.
And you, Uncle Warren, what you do for us is amazing.
All I do is eat Pop-Tarts and drink coffee. That's pretty much my my role in this. But and then I do a little chitty chatty. So this show will be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channels at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube and Rumble and Facebook and on Instagram. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for the support. We love each and every one of you. I'll be back on Friday for Morning Extra at the same time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Take care of yourselves and each other. Talk to your neighbors. Say hi.
Yes.
And get to know them. Because you're going to need them after this. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.
You say